Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thapliyal. And before I move on to our viewer queries, there's a good news coming on the inflation front. India CPI cools off in April, and the number that's coming in for the month is 4.7% inflation in April. And this is a drop which was more than expected. If I have to give you a breakdown of this, then the food price inflation has come down to 3.84% as compared to 4.79% at March. And rural inflation has come down to 4.68%. Now, this was a number that was on watch, and that's as compared to 5.51% in March. And urban inflation too has cooled down at 4.85% versus 5.89% in March. And housing prices, in fact, there's a rise over here of 4.91%. Also, quickly, if we can just read out the March industrial production, which has gone up 1.1% versus 2.2% year on year. So these are the crucial numbers which are coming in, and we'll be discussing more with Maithili Bhusnurmat in a short time. But then let's move on for now, and I have with me Keertan Shah, founder CEO, Credence Wealth Advisors. Keertan, good evening. Welcome to the show. And let's quickly take our viewers' queries. And I have Nilesh's question for you ready. He's planning to do an SIP in ICICI Pru Thematic Advantage Fund of Fund, and he wants to accumulate 50 lakhs in 2 to 3 years time frame through this one fund. How is the fund according to you, and is this strategy right?
Kavita, thank you so much for having me on the show. To answer Nilesh's question, the first thing that he'll have to understand is that if, let's say, we look at the higher end, if he has 3 years and wants to accumulate 50 lakh rupees, the first thing that he has to understand is that he'll have to do an SIP of roughly 1,20,000 rupees a month, assuming that the portfolio will be able to make 12%. Talking on the fund and the strategy, I think, Nilesh, I'm not a very great fan of investing all of your money in one stock, one fund, and also that one fund to be a thematic fund. I think both of these things don't go well with the way you should actually end up building a portfolio. And my suggestion to you would be, instead of doing the 1.2 lakh SIP into one fund, split that into 4 funds or 5 funds and invest money equally. What you typically have to do is try and invest in these 4 or 5 funds using all the market caps. So invest some money in a large cap, some money in mid cap, some in small cap, and do some global diversification. I think once you build a portfolio with 4 or 5 funds instead of one fund, you will have a much better diversification and a much better risk-adjusted return experience. So don't go with one fund, split that across 4 or 5 funds. That's my suggestion, Nilesh.
Okay, we move on to Keshav Patel's question, and he wants to invest 20 lakhs for medium to short term, and he has a good risk tolerance, and he wants you to suggest him some funds.
Keshav, first, I'm not sure of what your definition for medium to short term is, but generally speaking, the lower your investment horizon is, I would rather suggest that don't end up taking higher risk. While you are okay and have good tolerance, but it does not mean that if you're okay to take a lot of risk, you will end up generating a lot of returns, specifically in a case when you don't have a lot of or a bigger time horizon. So let's say if your time horizon is up to 3 years, and I'm assuming because you have higher risk tolerance, like you mentioned, I would say you stick to large cap mutual fund kind of investing. If you have close to 5 years of investing, you can definitely have some allocation to mid cap also. So let's say, assuming, because you've said medium term as well, assuming you have 5 years of investment horizon, split your investments into large and mid cap funds. I would suggest you to do a combination of ICICI Value Discovery, Kotak Equity Opportunity, and Axis Mid Cap. I think these 3 funds together will give you good exposure to large cap as well as mid cap. And the strategies that these funds follow are very different from each other. And hence you will also have a good diversification.
All right. Vibha's question for you, Keertan. She's currently investing in SBI Small Cap and HDFC Mid Cap Opportunity Fund, and she also wants to add SBI Contra and Parag Parikh Flexi Cap Fund. She wants to have have a corpus of 5 crores in 15 to 20 years. So is this portfolio right for her that she's planned?
Vibha, interestingly, while you've given a good range of 15 to 20 years, but there is a huge difference if it is going to be 15 or 20. I'll tell you why. If you want to accumulate 5 crore rupees and you've got 15 years, you will typically have to do 1,05,000 rupee worth of SIP. But interestingly, if the same 5 crore has to be accumulated in 20 years, then your SIP amount drops significantly down to only 55,000. Talking about the portfolio that you've selected, I think largely everything looks okay. I would suggest instead of doing an SBI Contra, you can actually opt for ICICI Value Discovery. Not that the SBI Contra Fund is bad, but of course it's been around for a much lesser time. And because you already have investment in SBI Small Cap, I think adding a new AMC would bring in a better flavor, I think.
So next is Karan's question for you, and he wants to build a long-term portfolio for his retirement, and he can invest 40 to 50,000 per month right now, and he wants you to advise him funds, and he also says that he's medium to high risk taker.
I think, Karan, what you ideally have to do is pick 4 or 5 funds and whatever SIP that you are looking at doing, try and equally divide those amongst the funds that you've selected. Because you have medium to high risk appetite, I would suggest that you split this 40 or 50,000, whatever you divide, equally amongst Kotak Equity Opportunity, PPFS, FlexiCap, Axis Midcap, and Nippon Small Cap. I think this is going to be a perfect diversified portfolio, provided you at least have 7-8 years of investment horizon. And if you have that, this can be a good portfolio for you to look at.
Okay, so that's the question. I mean, we don't have any of these viewers on the phone line with us. Otherwise, we could have asked more questions on their behalf. But then one more question. Nemisha, she's saying that if an NRI is planning to settle down in India post working for 10 years, is the amount taxable that's accumulated for the number of years as NRE account will be closed and amount will be transferred in NRO? The second question is, if that money is eligible for taxes, how to save on exorbitant taxes there?
Actually, you'll not be taxed because what happens is the monies that you've accumulated in the NRE account, it is assumed that you've already paid tax in the country of origin where you earned this, right? And so when you will move that to NRO, it will not be taxed. The problem here is that a lot of NRIs, don't declare the global income in India. And hence, there is a theoretical possibility that when you move your money from NRE to NRO, probably the IT may ask you, where did this money come from? So my simple suggestion is that, before you move into India, file taxes in India, declare your global income. And hence, when you move your money from NRE to NRO, there will be absolutely no problem.
Talking about NRI investment in India, Kirtan, how complicated or how easy it is for them to invest in Indian equities and maybe through ways like mutual funds?
Kavita, actually, it's become very simple these days for NRIs to actually go ahead and invest in India. There are a couple of countries, specifically US and Canada. There are some AMCs because of a lot of compliances that they have to do at their end. They don't encourage inflows from specifically US and Canada. But outside of US and Canada, I think there is not a lot of problem where NRIs find it as easy as you and I find it to invest in India. So if you leave these two specific countries that I spoke to you of, and AMCs very specifically don't want to, kind of encourage investments from these countries, is because there is a lot of compliance that the AMCs are expected to do at their end. And because of which, not everybody, but there are definitely some fund houses who are not very okay to go ahead and encourage investments from US and Canada. But like I said, outside of these two countries, almost all AMCs very happily invite investors to invest in their schemes. And for the investors also, it is as good as the kind of paperwork and the accountability process that you and I will go through as a resident.
Right. All right, Kirtan, with that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for being on the show and helping our viewers with their financial portfolio.